Hello everybody and welcome to my tutorial here on prompt weights, and this is going to be a pretty in-depth tutorial or guide, whatever you want to call it, just because I feel that prompt weights, I think a lot of people don't really use them to their full extent, but they are very extremely useful for kind of fine-tuning your prompts. Now I did do a tutorial on prompt weights for Disco Diffusion, but for Stable Diffusion and the Deforum network here, notebook, there is a slightly different format, I believe. So what I have here, first thing we're going to do is we are going to turn on, everything is, well, I don't know if it's default, but let me just go over some of my settings. So I have animation mode on none, and I am just right now using the 1.4 Stable Diffusion model. I haven't got the 1.5 yet, but I will probably do a guide on that soon as well. There is a 1.5 out now we can use that has been released. And I've also been really getting into making my own kind of customized models, and I'm going to release one to everybody here very soon. I'm working on my next one will be werewolves or space or something, but let's get back to this one. Okay, so prompt weights here. To do this, we first need to enable prompt weights, which will be down here in our run settings. And so I have this checked, and then this has to be turned on. If this isn't turned on, it will get really ugly. Let me just kind of show you really quick. Let me go ahead and just set these all to 1. So I have a blue square 1, a red circle 1, a yellow triangle 1. And what this will do is it'll give them all equal amounts of input into the image generation. Although I think almost all diffusion is kind of partial to the red color for some reason. Red seems to overpower everything else, and that even goes way back to Disco Diffusion. If you'd run a video, a lot of times it would kind of turn totally red, so we'll probably get mostly red. Okay, so now you'll see this is just really ugly. This is a mess. Now we can fix this by doing this. We just click normalize prompt weights, and now we should get something more coherent. So I don't know if there's a way to leave this unchecked and use it. I just always check it. So if you're using prompt weights, just always leave that checked. And then I will show you what this one does. And I always have that on too, just because it kind of shows you what it's doing. Okay, and there is our video. You'll see a blue square 1, a red circle 1, a yellow triangle 1. So it's giving all of those parts of the prompt equal say in the image generation. And like I said, red does seem to overpower everything for some reason. Let me go ahead and run this one more time. I'm going to show you how we can use this. This is really good, especially if you haven't used weights before. I would turn this on and it will kind of show you how it's distributing that prompt. So if you notice, a blue square has a weight of 0.33, a red circle 0.33, a yellow triangle 0.33. So these numbers that we're inning are really just relative to each other. So this would be the exact same thing as if I put 2 in all of them. It would still be distributed. Each one would have 1/3 of the total value. So I'll go ahead and do that. And we should get an image that is identical or very similar. I'm using the same seed. So this will be the same in math terms. This will be the exact same as entering them all as 1. If you notice now it's 0.33, 0.33, 0.33. So really these prompt weights, they are just in relation to each other when you put those prompt weights. Notice this is the same image. So a lot of people, I think, mostly use the prompt weights because they want to get rid of, maybe trees or hands, like you can put hands -1. And it does work for that a bit, but I really think the best, most accurate use of it is just to kind of balance out what you already have in your prompt. So let's go ahead now. I'm going to go ahead now and change these values a little bit. This is just kind of an introduction to show you what the prompt weights are. So now I just have a blue square 1 and a 0 on the other ones. And we'll go ahead and run this. Okay, and like I said, this is going to be kind of a deep dive. So if you want to go grab a snack, or something, this might be a long video. I'm not sure. Okay, so now we have a blue square, and that's quite different from our other ones. And let's go ahead. I'm just going to do the same thing here. So we're just going to kind of go over the basic stuff here first, and then we will get into the fun, more complicated stuff as the video goes on. So now we have a red circle with a value of 1, and the other two with a value of 0. And then we'll do the yellow triangle last. And then like for this, you wouldn't really enter a prompt like this normally, because if you didn't want a blue square or yellow triangle in it, you just wouldn't put them in the prompt. So I'm just kind of showing you how this works though. So now there is our red circle. And now we will do our yellow triangle just to complete this part. Okay, and if you notice now, it's showing us the weight. So now it's showing us yellow triangle is a weight of 1. So the yellow triangle is 100% of the prompt it's using. It is ignoring the other ones. And there we go, yellow triangle. So now what we can do also, we can go ahead and crank this up to 5. And I'll go ahead and put a 1 on each of these. Actually, just to make it easier for me to do the math here, I'm going to put an 8 and a 1 and a 1. So 80% of the image will be yellow triangle, 10% square, and 10% red circle. So all these values will always add up to a total of 100% of the prompt. So it doesn't matter what numbers you put in there, what it's going to do is just balance them against each other and give each weight a percentage of the total prompt. So with this, we have a total of 9, or excuse me, 10 for a value. We've got 8, 9, 10. And so the blue square is going to get 10%, the red circle is going to get 10%, and then the other 80% is going to go towards the yellow triangle. And there we go. And now let's split it up between the blue square and the yellow triangle. We'll give both of those a 4, and we'll give the red circle a 2. So this should be mostly yellow triangle and blue square with just a little bit of a red circle. But again, like I said, it does seem like the red color kind of overpowers. So there we got our weight 0.4 for the blue square, red circle 0.2, and yellow triangle 0.4. Okay, and there we go. So our red circle, we're not seeing much circles in there. We're seeing the blue and the yellow, but we still do see a lot of red. But that is how the weights work. So let me go ahead now and we'll get to using this in a more functional way. Okay, now I want to point something out too. If you're familiar with Disco Diffusion, if you had a equation like this where it says a forest by a lake 1, trees minus 1, what would happen is you'd get an error because 1 minus 1 is 0. But this, apparently you can do that. You can have the total equal 0 in this. What'll happen is it will just keep the 1 and it should just not generate the trees. Yeah, so so all of the weight, 100% of the weight is just going towards the forest by a lake. So you don't have to worry about the numbers adding up to 1 here. And I also want to show like some people want to use these prompts to like get rid of an item. So it can do that, but it's a lot more useful. I think it's more accurate at just balancing out what's already in your prompt. So let's go ahead now and try to do trees minus 10. Let's say we don't want any trees in our image or hands. If you want to make something, you can put a negative weight in there and it should stop that from rendering. So I don't know if that forest is going to counteract that. That's what I kind of wanted to test here. Because normally a forest is going to have trees, but we've got trees at minus 10. Now it's just going to do the same thing. So it's just going to, so this is why that's really not a really good use for it. Yeah, see, so we're still getting trees. So that part of that, now forest does have trees in it, but that is probably one of the issues there with trying to use it to just get rid of something. So it doesn't work as well with that. So let me show you a little more practical use. And like I said, it can do that. Let's just do this. Let's do a mountain lake. We'll take out forest. And maybe this can be a way we can get rid of trees. So let's try the same one. I just replaced forest with mountain. Mountains usually have trees, so we'll see. And the minus 10 that I did is not any different than just minus 1. Because you can see it's either way. It's okay. So there we don't have any trees there. Let's go ahead, and I do have the same seed here. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to put 0 instead of a negative weight. So let's see if there's any difference between 0 and negative 1. I don't think so, but we'll find out here. Okay, well there it did work. It did work. It got rid of the trees in the one, so it can work, but it's just a little spotty. But there we see that it did actually work in this case. So you can use it as a negative weight to get rid of elements that might normally be in your prompt. But if you notice when I had a lake by a forest, since forests have trees, that overrode the trees -1. So if you do have anything in there that might generate the same thing really specifically, like a mountain doesn't have to have trees, but a lot of them do. So I guess that's the difference here. But let's go ahead and do this one more time. So now it should have a mountain with no trees because it is giving that -1 to the trees there, where when we had 0, it just basically ignored it and just didn't it didn't have that in the prompt. The part about the weight -1 of the trees, if you'll notice, it just left it out. So that is the difference. So you can use it to remove unwanted elements. So we're going to do this one more time here with the trees at 0 and mountain lake at 1. And this time, if you'll notice, it doesn't have that weight -1 for the trees. The only thing it's doing now is a mountain lake. So there is a difference between 0 and -1 for the prompt weight. And there we go. Now we've got trees again. Okay, and for the next part here, I'm going to show you how to use it in a bit more of a practical method, and we'll keep getting more functional as this tutorial goes on. So what I have here is I have a cottage by a lake that has a weight of 1. Then I have by Thomas Kincaid with a weight of 1. Then I have two other artists here by Sonia Delany, 0, and Hugh Ferris, 0. Now I tried to pick three artists with very different styles. So Thomas Kincaid kind of does bright, really colorful pictures of cottages and things, and you'll probably recognize his style with really bright colors. Sonia Delane, I actually haven't used her, but she's just an abstract artist, so her art was mostly just shapes and things. And then Hugh Ferris had black and white pictures of buildings. So I tried to pick three very different artists here. So right now in this first one, I have Thomas Kincaid with 1 and the other artist with 0. And we'll go ahead and run this. And there it's showing us the weights. So it's just doing Cottage by a Lake 50%, Thomas Kincaid 50%. And we'll kind of do this with all three just so we can see the difference. And there is a Thomas Kincaid picture. Notice the bright colors, the shining lights. And now we'll go ahead and we'll put the next artist in there. And this is Sonia Delany. This is the sort of abstract artist with colored shapes. And I'm hoping this doesn't even really give us a coherent cottage. Like I said, I wanted three really different kind of contrasting styles. We'll see what this looks like. Okay, that actually looks kind of nice. Okay, but it's definitely a different style. We can tell it's a lot kind of not as much detail, I guess we can see. Okay, now let's do this last one. Hopefully this one will be black and white. Okay, and now we have by Hugh Ferris. And again, this isn't how we would use it. Normally, if we wanted a 0, we would just not put them in there, but I'm just kind of doing this to illustrate how we can use these weights to kind of partially get an artist effect in here. So we'll do that next. I'll show you that next. Right now, I just want to show you the three styles. Hopefully these contrast enough. Okay, there we go. That one's definitely black and white. It's still kind of realistic. Yeah, it actually looks pretty realistic, but it is black and white. Okay, so what you can do here, let's say we want mostly Thomas Kincaid image. And then we just want a little bit of Sonia and a little bit of Hugh. So I'm putting Thomas Kincaid 4. And then we can also crank up our cottage by a lake to give it a little more prominence there to a 3. So we got there 3, 7, 8, 9. Let's go ahead and let's just put the cottage by a lake with 4. This will give us some nice even numbers. So 40% of the prompt is going to be cottage by a lake. 40% of the prompt is going to be by Thomas Kincaid, and then 10% to Sonia and 10% to Hugh. And we can see that down there. There's our 0.4 for Cottage by a Lake, 0.4 for by Thomas Kincaid, and then 10% to the other ones. Okay, and there we go. We can see that is mostly still the Thomas Kincaid looking image. And now let's go ahead and just switch these values around a bit. We'll give Sonia the majority of it this time. And so this is a way you can just put in, like, if you don't fully want the effect of part of your prompt, like I'll do it next, but other ones can be modifiers like volumetric lighting and that kind of thing. Okay, and now we've got much more of that. And then let's go ahead and do the same thing here to hue. And then he should be the predominant force in this image. So it's really just a percentage. Just know when you're doing these with the weights, the numbers don't really have any value except to each other. It's just a relation between the other things in your problem. So it doesn't matter if you put, a 4 there or 400, 100, 100, 400, it's still going to break it down into a number of 1. And each number is just going to give it that percentage of that whole number. And there we go. So now that one is mostly the black and white. So that is how the prompts work. Now let me show you one other thing here. Let me show you what happens if we don't put a weight here. So I'm going to put a 2 by Thomas Kincaid there, and I'm going to go ahead and crank this one up to 6. And I'm not going to put a weight by Sonia Delani at all. Now, if you notice, what it did is it gave Sonia Delani and Hugh Ferris a weight of 0.5 and Tom Kincaid just a 0.17. So what it did, and if you notice, I put a 6 there, though. I didn't put a, well, that's the total weight. Actually, let me do this another way. Let's get this so the math is a little easier to do. There we go. 2, 2. Okay. Okay, so I've got Cottage by a Lake with 2, Thomas Kincaid with 2, and then Sonia Delane. I didn't put anything there. I just put a comma. And then by Hugh Ferris for 6. Okay, but if you'll notice, it took the Sonia Delane and just kind of mixed her in there with Hugh Ferris for zero point 0.6. So right now it's breaking that from this prompt over to the next one. It's just giving that to this one. So let's do this. I'm going to put another artist in there, H.R. Geiger, who's also black and white. And I believe this will do the same thing. I believe in this point, this 6, it'll assign it to everything to the 2. I just want to double check that. Yeah. So if you just want to save some time and you want the same weights in something, you can speed it up a bit by doing that. Now we've got a very different looking image again. So now we're going to get into some even more functional stuff and ways we can just give us more power, more ways to micromanage our image. Okay, so what I've done here is I've added some pretty common modifiers here that you'll see a lot. So I've got a cottage by a lake, art station, deviant art, volumetric lighting, matte painting, concept art, Unreal Engine by Thomas Kincaid. And right now I have everything with just equal weight, a weight of 1. So I could just do this without the weights. This would basically be like not having any weights because it's just going to generate everything equally. If you notice, it's just giving a 0.12 to everything. Okay, and here's our final image there with all of those having equal weights. So what you can do, let's say, okay, I like this image, but maybe I want it to look more 3D. I want it to have more of that Unreal Engine effect. So you can take that part of the prompt here, and we'll crank that part up to 4. Okay, now we've got a much more kind of almost just a video game looking thing there because that Unreal Engine. So this is really a way you can just like get in there and just micromanage everything. So what I'll usually do, what a good thing to do here is you want to take the main parts of your prompt, which is a cottage by a lake. That's our main one. And then we want the artist to have quite a bit of say too. You want to make it a Thomas Kincaid picture. So we'll give both of those a 4. And then we'll leave these other modifiers here like art station, DeviantArt, et cetera, et cetera. We're just going to give those a weight of 1. So you'll notice even without changing the prompt, just by using the weights, we can get a host of different looking images here. So right now the Thomas Kincaid is 0.29, the cottage by a lake. So that's about 60% of the image then is going to be a cottage by a lake by Thomas Kincaid. Then the rest of the stuff, the modifiers don't have as much say in the image generation. And let's do something. Let me go ahead and just take out the art station and DeviantArt. And I'm going to replace it with something a little more noticeable. I'm going to put Glaucous, Fog, and Mist, and I'm going to crank this up a bit. Okay, so now our fog is 25% of the image. So what you can use the weights for is just, like I said, to micromanage it and control exactly how much fog you get in your image. So we'll focus on that for this one. Okay, there we go. And I'm not really noticing any fog there. So let's go ahead, let's crank that up even more. Let's just go crazy. Let's put it up to 20. And Glaucous is kind of a sort of a light blue, almost gray color. Okay, and there we go. So that should be 60% of the image now, that glaucous fog and mist. There we go. Now we're seeing some more fog. So we can use that to just really control certain elements of our prompt. So this one, I've got a noise schedule. I just 0.02 through the whole thing, and I've turned down the strength schedule, those changes, or I've turned it up from 0.4 up to 0.5 for the changes. So we'll still lower a bit from the 0.55, but not quite as much. And then I'm going to leave the cadence setting where it is. Let's see, how many frames do we got here? Yep, that'll work. Okay, so now what I've done is I've replaced the different artists with summer flowers, winter snow, and fall leaves. So we've got a steady value of A Cottage by a Lake of 3 and by Thomas Kincaid a 3 in all our prompts. And in our first prompt, we have summer value or summer flowers 4 from keyframe 0 to 50, and we have 0 and 0 for winter snow. Then at keyframe 51, we have a negative prompt, summer flowers -1, so it's going to erase those flowers. And then it's going to start making fall leaves of 4. And then once it's done there, we can just put a 0. So I've got summer flowers 0, and then our winter snow goes up to 4, and our fall leaves, we've got a -1. So what this should do is start off our animation with summer flowers, then turn into fall, and then winter. So let's go ahead and do this. I did a lot of these kind of animations for Disco Diffusion. You can also use the same principle to age a person. Like we could have a young boy, a teenager, a man, and an old man. I've done some videos like that too, kind of time lapse videos that are kind of neat. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, and it has started. And if you see right now, we've got A Cottage by a Lake by Thomas Kincaid is 60%. And then our Summer Flowers is the 40%. So everything's right on schedule now. Okay, we're approaching keyframe 50 now, so it should start getting rid of those summer flowers and start making fall leaves. And we actually have a negative prompt on there, which will help to kind of get rid of them as well, which is shown right there, -1. And we should start getting some more fall colors here. And it should continue to erase those flowers. Yep, there we go. So now we're seeing more kind of leaves on trees. And again, we're keeping the same artist, the same prompt. It's still Cottage by a Lake by Thomas Kincaid. And then at keyframe 100, it'll start getting rid of the leaves and start adding snow. Okay, we're approaching keyframe 100 now. So that's one reason why I always really liked using weights in Disco Diffusion for animations, because it really kind of adds a storytelling kind of element to your videos. So here we hit 100. So now we should start seeing some winter snow. Those fall leaves should start disappearing. Yeah, winter snow should be coming in. Okay, and there we go. We are for some reason there is snow going, but we are still getting those summer flowers for some reason. So maybe I'll run this one more and I'll go ahead and put a negative weight on those as well. After all, that's the whole purpose of our weights here, is to control our animation here how we want it. Yeah, so we are still getting those summer flowers. I'm not sure why it's at a 0. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's just keep this at -1 through the whole thing, which I didn't think would be necessary, but it looks like it is. And yeah, and then actually let's go ahead and crank that winter snow up to 6. Let's really, you know what, no, we're gonna do 10. Let's just make it a blizzard here at the end. Let's make it more dramatic. Let's actually even do a little bit of the same with the fall leaves here. And I think let's also turn up the Cottage by a Lake a bit. And Thomas Kincaid down a bit. So we'll get our subject a little more in there. And this is why I kind of do these videos like I do, where I'm just actually recording what I'm doing, because it really helps to kind of just actually see, real-time adjustments and things you can do. So I like to leave my mistakes and errors or corrections like I'm doing now in. So let's go ahead and do this again. I think we can leave all that the same. Yep. Okay, let's do one more try here. Let's see if we can get a little more dramatic changes. Okay, it's starting here. We still don't got a cottage, but it is. Cottage by Lake is cranked up there. We don't got a lake either. That's kind of odd, considering that is It should be where the big, yeah, Cottage by Lake is 40%, so we should be seeing that. Summer Flowers is also 40%. Oh, let's go modify it again. Let's go ahead and turn that up to 5. Oh, you know what? Let's give this a big chunk of it. Let's do 6. This is, after all, what the weights are for, is to tell it how we want our image to look. Okay, it's starting up now. We can even see a little cottage peeking there in the background. And then our lake should probably disappear a bit because I don't have it at that high through the whole thing. Again, I want to kind of emphasize the changes. Or I do have it that high, but I've got the fall leaves are bigger than the summer flowers. They're at 8, and then the winter snow is at a 10. So it should really emphasize those season changes on this one. Okay, and here comes frame 50 where the summer flowers should start disappearing and we should start seeing fall leaves. Yep, there we go. We can definitely see those fall colors now. Okay, and we are approaching keyframe 100 now, which should start turning to winter. Okay, and so you can see how this using weights really kind of adds kind of a storytelling element. Like I also could have put frozen lake in there, or maybe have some bears come into the scene, things like that, have things come and go. So the weights are really a really good way to kind of micromanage not just your still images, but your animations as well. So you can see we used the same prompt here. All we changed in these keyframes is just the weight of certain parts of the prompt. And so that also makes it real easy to, just copy and paste over and over again. So this is about done. We'll go ahead and render the video here. Like I said, a lot of people really liked these kind of videos when I did them with Disco Diffusion. Let's go ahead. And I think this will be better than that last one we did. And it should render pretty quickly too, since it's only 150 frames. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and look at it here. Here we've got summer. Now it's changing into fall. And then we've got winter. So I hope you like this tutorial. And again, I will be focusing on models next. I'm actually making my own models now, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. I am going to post a model here for everybody. I've been making my first 2 models I made for my Patreons only because I had a week or 2 this month where I wasn't very active. I had some family stuff I had to take care of, and that is all done now. So I am going to continue to making models for my Patreon page, but I also am going to start posting some public ones for everybody. Just say thank you for subscribing to the channel, and I just really like making them. So I'll get into that next and models next. But I hope that this weights tutorial kind of really showed you how the weights work and the format and how to use them because you can really do some great things with them. It's really lets you, like I said, just micromanage. I know I've used that word a lot, but that's what I like to do. I really like to micromanage my images and videos, and weights are a great tool to do that. So thank you for watching, and I will be back soon with more content. I am going to get busy again here with the videos and tutorials. You all have a great rest of your day.